Hi, today is Wednesday, June 12th. We are glad to have all of you with us. We are now at around 50 some days, I think, until the exam. So it gets pretty real. And we've got some student questions to answer today. We've also got some updates, some things that are happening. And then Tracy, you're going to talk about something called a cairns, CAIRN. Is that correct?
That is correct.
No idea what that means. None. We will try to keep everybody informed and updated. Let's start with just a general announcement. We have booked an executive from the NCBE, the National Conference of Bar Examiners, to be with us in July on the podcast and to answer questions about next gen and the bar exam. We'll give you more details as we get closer, but that's a pretty nice get, isn't it? You get one of the execs from NCBE to join us. So there you go. Must be because we've got one of the top 20 exam podcasts on the internet. That's fun. All right. I think the first thing we should talk about, Tracy, is the Level Up program. Level Up is coming this Saturday. This is an opportunity to work in a very small setting, 1-on-1, 1-on-2, 1-on-3, with me or with Tracey. We've got several blocks set up, 1-hour blocks. And in each block, we're going to focus on one particular item. So there's a 1-hour block on photo reading. There's a 1-hour block on mind mapping. Tracy, you're doing a couple of 1-hour blocks on essay writing, correct?
That's right.
And
That's right.
we're doing performance tests. We're doing NBE. So all of that is there, and it's $100 a block. Now, I had a request from one of our students to work through the Florida exam, to talk about what's going on in the Florida exam. And I thought this would be an interesting way to actually add a block in the afternoon, one block for Florida, one for Georgia, one for UBE, and one for California. And what I decided to do, it's all things Florida or all things California, whatever it might be. But I thought that one of the things I could do would be to give those participants a preview of my preview. That is, I'm going to talk about what I think is coming on the exam. So if you'd like a running head start on my, and I hate to use this word because they're not really predictions, they're just trend analysis. But if you'd like to know what I'm thinking is coming around the corner in July on the bar exam, this is your chance to get that now rather than waiting a month until around July 10th when I normally make the video available. So if you want to participate in the Florida preview, there's a block now on that site where you can jump in there and register for that hour. And of course, we'll do more than just talk about what's coming in the exam. We'll also talk about the test itself. And there's the link. We've got Florida noon Mountain. We've got UBE at 1 o'clock, Georgia at 2, and California at 3. And you can join me and get my preview for that block. So what you want to do is go to our website, the for the Level Up day, and then use sort of the blocks you want. And as I say, each block is $100 each. And you can also, with that, get the opportunity to pay over time using our buy now, pay later programs. So that's cool. Again, that's this Saturday.
We're starting at 8 o'clock
Mountain
time, which would be 10 on the East Coast and 7 o'clock on the West Coast. You need a little extra help with something, this is a great opportunity just to jump in, and you can register all the way up until Friday night. We'll send you a Zoom link on Friday night, and you can jump in Saturday morning.
We would love to have you. We are keeping the size of Level Up to about 3 or 4 people per block, depending on what it is that we're doing. So you're getting really intensive opportunities to work with us. I know that we've got a lot of interest in the multi-state, the MBE block. Just to tell you what we're going to do there, we'll be going through some MBE questions. We'll be doing selective intuition. I'll be showing you how to apply that approach and then how to mind map it and work with the answer responses that you get. So that's just one example. But I did want to point out this new piece, even if you don't want to, if you think you got everything else nailed down and you're thinking to yourself, I'd really like to know what subjects Jackson thinks might be tested, then hop on that 1 hour and get that information. If you want to wait till July 10th, that's great. We'll do the video then for you as well. We've got a fair number of people participating already, but we certainly have space for more, and we'd love to have people participate.
Yeah, right now you have an excellent opportunity for one-on-one with me on an essay that you can write and bring into the session. There's a couple people signed up for mind map, so we're going to work and look at your mind maps. And that time with Jackson is getting scarce as we get closer to the exam. So this is a great opportunity to jump in at 11 o'clock and ask him anything, or to come in the afternoon for your specific jurisdiction, or in the morning if you need a brush up on these very important components of exam preparation.
Yes. And you can register for as many blocks as you want. So I know we've got people that have signed up for 2, 3 blocks. Don't hesitate to do that. I think this is a good tool. Our goal here is for you to be able to get this focus 6 weeks out from the exam. And I think it's a good way to do that. First time we've done that, we'll look forward to having all of you participate and look forward to seeing you. So that's what's going on with Level Up Day. The next thing we wanted to talk about is what we're calling 5 for 5. This is the opportunity to add 5 coaching calls for $500. You can make 5 payments of $110 if you want. It costs you a little bit more, but you can do monthly payments if you prefer to do that. I want to give you the link for that as well. We had set a deadline today to participate in the 5 for 5, but because we're having so many technical problems, the week has gone on, we're going to extend this out through Saturday. So if you have not yet ordered your 5 for 5, you'll have an opportunity for another couple of days to do that. Use that link. If you're watching later, we'll put the link up for you. But again, it's the chance to have 5 coaching calls one-on-one with Tracey or Amanda or me. When you order this, you'll be able to select your mentor. It'll be me, Tracey, or Amanda, whoever you'd like to work with. You do these 5 calls. You'll be talking about your essays, your performance tests, if that applies, if you're not in Florida, and your multi-state or multiple choice, just whatever you want to work on. We record the calls. They're 30 minutes in length, and there's plenty of time to use those. So it's a great opportunity to get some extra coaching. And of course, you could do this if you're not getting any coaching at all right now. But even if you've got coaching calls, we've had a number of people who've just said, I want to add to my coaching. Well, normally, this would cost $1,250 to do with me. It would cost $1,000 with Tracey or Amanda. So great savings, really, and great way to do it. So there you go. You can use buy now, pay later. You can use monthly payments with us. But in any event, deadline now pushed back to Saturday because I couldn't get all the link. So sorry. Anything else you want to say about 5 for 5, Tracey?
I had a student ask if we could work on mind maps. You can work on anything you want in these 5 sessions. It's really what you feel like you need to tweak up before the exam next month. So we're just here for you, and you can set the agenda.
All right, great. If you have any questions, let us know. I would say that this is the point in time when, if you're thinking about adding coaching, this is when you should do it, because you need to have enough time to get the feedback and apply it, and then get more feedback and apply it again. And I think if you're not doing that, if you're trying to do it right at the very end, it's valuable, but not as good as doing it now. So that would be my suggestion, is to try and get it done now. All right. We have any other announcements?
Yeah, we need to talk about a staff change.
You want to do that?
In a way, and in a way, I don't want to do it. I'm sad to announce that our dear June has decided to separate herself from CBR and move on to other things, other pursuits in her life. She has worked with Jackson for over 9 years. In a short period of time, a year and a half or so that I've worked with her, I've sure enjoyed her work and her wisdom and her calming, the chaos sometimes in our meetings, and also for you. We are very grateful for June and her participation at Celebration Bar Review. Now, we are not immediately, and some of it is timing because the bar exam is next month. We're not hiring another admin assistant right now. So you're looking at the 2 assistants, and you've already seen how great we do. But we are working together, and we will handle all of your requests and your needs if you just be patient with us as we learn how to do this. We're having to, like this morning, set up new feeds and things like that. Thank you to June, and good luck to June, and we move forward.
Yeah, I echo all of that. Obviously, she's been an integral part of what we do, and we wish her well. There are things in her life that are changing, and we respect that decision. let me just address the practical logistics. But some of you had some coaching calls with June. In some cases, she may be doing those, but if she's not, Tracy and I are picking up those calls, and you can use them either for mindset work or for regular coaching. And we'll just give you that opportunity and that option. So if you had remaining calls with her, just reach out to us and we will accommodate you either with coaching calls with one of the two of us or mindset coaching. We intend to change Calming the Chaos a little bit. We'll focus it more on superego. Some other pieces, we'll be telling you about that in the days ahead. Again, our best wishes to our fairy godmother, and just know that we're here, we got you. If you need to reach us on logistics items, the email is admin@celebrationbarreview.com. If you're sending an email to june@celebrationbarreview.com, it's going to get forwarded back to me and I will respond, but the admin is probably the better email address to use.
And she wanted us to tell you that she is calling for you. She knows you can do it. She's sorry she could not stay through the next examination administration, but she is in your corner even as she steps away from ours.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Should we turn to student questions now?
I think so.
Okay. First question, and this is typical again of what we see at this stage. Got a lot of questions that basically asked, how much time should I allocate to multi-state versus state and essay writing, or if you're in Florida, multiple choice? I think at this point, your focus should be primarily on getting through the substantive material. That is, making sure that you've done the reading, photo reading, and the lectures for all of the subjects in your exam. So if you're in the UBE, you've got 14 subjects. You've got more subjects than that in Georgia, about that number in California and Florida. And the goal here is to get through all of that substantive work. If you're following the course syllabus, basically, you're going to be in proper balance. Where it gets dangerous is when people start jumping around and saying, I want to study this subject and then this subject and then this subject. Or they start going heavily into multi-state or heavily into the writing. In general, that's not a good plan unless there's a particular reason why if you just were fabulous on the multi-state and terrible in the writing, okay, it makes a little more sense. But most people, it's fairly even. So I would stay pretty balanced between the two right now. I would not swing wildly one direction or the other. I will say that around the 10th of July, which is our benchmark date for finishing the substantive part of the course, that's when most people start doing more in multi-state because they're taking full length exams. And remember, you've got several of those exams coming up, the practice tests, the 2021 all the way back to 1992. So there's a lot of MBE work that you could do at the end. I think the danger is getting bogged down in an MBE subject right now. Don't you, Tracy?
I think so. I agree with everything you're saying.
Yeah. I see students like get caught up in property. I'll just use that as an example. And they say, I'm going to spend a week on property. You could have done that a couple months ago, but now you can't do that. So literally trying to work through a subject, if you're spending 3 to 5 hours a day of study, you should be able to get through an MBE subject in about 3 days. And if you're taking much longer than that, it's going to be tough for you to be ready at the end. You can get there, but the whole goal is that we're going to repeat over and over, so you don't need to grind through a subject right now. And I think, in my experience, most people have 1 or 2 MBE subjects that really trip them up, that they just think are really hard. And the hard part here is to let go of that desire to know it all and just keep moving through it, because you will get constant repetition back through the course. So keep that in mind. I get a lot of questions right now about how many hours a week should I be studying. I think right now the minimum is probably 20 hours a week, unless you are in a wrap-up mode. And some of you are, but for the most part, if you're still going through the substantive course, I think 20 hours is a minimum. I would say 20 to 30 is not uncommon. If you're studying full-time, you certainly can do that. We're not telling you to do that. We're not suggesting that you go to your boss and quit today. But if you're in that 20 to 30 hour period, remember that you can break these studies up into smaller segments and do a couple hours in the morning before you go to work, do an hour at lunch, do a couple of hours after work, and then longer on your days off, whatever days of the week that is. I'm a firm believer in not sitting for more than 3 hours at a time. How about you?
Cramming is not the way to study for this exam. But to go 4 or 5 days and not pick up any of the work and then try to put all that into the next 2 days is not going to be helpful. You just simply can't absorb that much. So it's much better to break it out, make sure you have good breaks, make sure you have plenty of water, that you exercise. And that just may mean going for a 10 or 15-minute walk. It means getting away from everything, putting on some music, just giving your brain a rest and make sure that you keep your social life up because this is so isolating already.
That's where we are in terms of how to balance your studies. If you're doing 3 hours at a time, I do 3 hours in the morning, and I would start waking up at the time you expect to be up for the exam. I think that would be helpful to you as well. And then take a lunch break for about an hour and a half, and then do an afternoon session of 3 hours, then take an extended dinner break, come back and do perhaps 1 or 2 hours of study. Particularly if you're a photo reader, then I would add one other piece, which is to photo read at night before you go to sleep. Photo read all your outlines. And for a lot of people, the way they do this is that Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, you read your multi-state subject outline books. Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, read your state outline subject books, and Sunday, get the night off. Just a different way to do it. All right. So that's the timing and logistics as we see it. Again, remember that July 10th is our benchmark date for you to be finished with your substantive study. Not a hard date, not an absolute date, but that's what you should be aiming for. All right. Next question that we got. Student said, I'm having difficulty finishing my essay. They're in the UBE, and they said in 30 minutes, which is what they get. And I'm having trouble doing my performance test in 90 minutes. What tips do you have for me? That's a tough one. The first tip, the most obvious one, is you got to practice under time conditions. When we reach this stage of your study, a student says to me, I had an essay and I went over by 10 minutes or 15 minutes. This starts to be concerning to me at this point because you've got to start training yourself to be able to do it in the time frame that exists. I think that when we give ourselves permission to go over the time, then we get sloppy, we build a habit, and then it's really hard to back it off and get into the time frame that you need to be working in. So the first thing to me is just practicing under those time conditions. Do you agree with that, Trace?
Yeah, I would add a little bit to that. I think you should do these things under time conditions and mark on your writing when you run out of time. But then I think you should finish your essay or your MPT. And go back and look at the entire body of work and see where you can be more concise. Are you writing too much in the facts section? Because that doesn't really get you points. Just setting up your law paragraph and your application paragraph. Is your law paragraph nice and tight? 4 sentences. Theory of the case from the proponent, law that backs it up. Competing theory of the case, law that backs it up. And is your application section to the point? Remember, you're arguing this in front of me, and I don't want to hear you draw on. If I give you 10 minutes, I'm going to cut you off at 10 minutes. So I think it's a good thing to go ahead and mark when you ran out of time so you can see what you're doing. But then I want you to finish the exercise so that you get what you need to put in your mind maps and what you need to bring as an integrated whole.
Yeah. The other thing, I think the conciseness is really important. I think the other part of this is not spending too much time before you start writing. Take the call to the question, use that as your organizational structure. You're going to use FLA, so it's pretty straightforward. As Tracey said, keep the fact paragraph short, 1 or 2 sentences, and just jump right in and start writing. Now, if you're a photo reader, you've got to trust that the law will come to you. It's spontaneous activation. We're going to be talking about that at the level up day, but it's really something that you just have to trust. And the only way you're going to trust it is to do it in practice. If you don't do it until test day, it won't happen for you. So if you get used to writing in that law paragraph, your legal argument, and then asking yourself, what is the law? What would the law have to say in order to support this argument? And then just paraphrase what comes to your mind. When you do that, you'll write faster, and then you'll gain the confidence. And as you gain the confidence, you'll write even faster still. Now, I know for some of you, the issue is that you're not fast typists. How do you get to be a faster typist? You practice. That's really what it comes down to. type everything, practice everything. The same would be true if English is not your first language. We go into what we call the English only bubble at this stage. Speak English, read English, watch English television, do everything that you can do in English so that you have more familiarity and comfort with it. But there is no substitute for practice and that exposure, I think. As far as the performance test goes, one of the things that's really, you got to be really careful with, this is in the UBE and in Georgia, a little different in California. They give you both performance tests at once and give you a 3-hour block of time. What I saw in the February test is that people got a 4 on one performance test and a 2 on the other. And when I asked, they say, I went over on performance test number 1 by 10 minutes. It doesn't seem like a lot, but now you're talking about a 100-minute answer versus an 80-minute answer. And that's a big, big swing. And so we see this change in scoring. So I think one of the things you've got to do in practice is set your timer. I use a big egg timer, right? Because it helps me recognize where the period of time is up, but just set your phone or your timer for 90 minutes. In addition to that, be really, I think, intentional about the 5 minutes of initial prep for a performance test, 10 minutes in the library, 10 minutes in the file, and then 5 minutes to organize and then start writing. Now in California, your performance test comes on your written day, but it's not the same thing. It's not like you have multiple of those. So it's a little easier there, but something to keep in mind. So, anything else you want to add about timing, Tracey? Performance test? Okay. Just do them, practice them. And I think if you're struggling with performance tests, we're now at the stage where you should be planning to write one performance test a week and reviewing that. I would focus primarily on objective, tone, and legal audience. That's the most common. And then persuasive tone to a legal audience is second most common. And you will see those. By the way, we have put the February 2024 performance tests and UBE essays, those are in the books now. The Florida essays from February are in the books, and we're working in California and Georgia. So you will see all of those. So make sure you check and update. Go to your digital copy. Kind of love it when people ask me later, they say, is it in the printed books? Yeah, but not your set. So, there you go. So you got to go online to get that stuff. And there. All right. The last student question that I had before we jump into Tracey's conversation, we obviously have a lot of foreign trained attorneys, folks for whom English is a second language. And the question was, how does that apply if I'm a photo reader? Which is a great question. I've talked to Paul Sheely about this several times, and it's been my experience as well, that photo reading remarkably effective for non-native English speakers. And here's why, at least as Paul explained it to me. When you read the text, you're reading in English. And if you were reading traditionally, you would read it and then do a translation, right? And to your native language. And then you think about it or work with it and translate it back to English in order to work with it in writing or answering an NBE question. What Paul says happens when you photo read is that your brain takes in English and it does the translation in the non-conscious mind. So it's running in the background, if you will. When you spontaneously activate answer a question, then that material comes out of non-conscious. And in most cases, and people have to tell me if this is true, it comes out in English. And that's a big advantage. Now, it may come to you in your native language, and then you've got to retranslate it, but you've cut out that whole conscious translating part to take what you're reading and put it into your mind. And so is there a special approach to photo reading if you're a non-English speaker? The answer is no. You should do exactly the same thing. You should photo read it, then do your post view, and then as you start to activate, that's where you'll get it back there. I also think mind mapping is pretty important for a non-English speaker, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. You have to get the turns of phrase in English, and you've got to get those into your non-conscious brain so that you can bring them back up when it's time to write.
Yeah. And I think the mind mapping really helps do that because there you're not under pressure. You're literally taking what you've got, you're putting it in the mind map. Now, I would not recommend doing the mind map in a language other than English, but as you do that translation in your mind, I think it's helping get, as you say, Tracy, the terms of our buzzwords, the language that we want to get. So if you're not a photo reader and and English is not your first language, there is still time for you to acquire photo reading and start using it and learn it. It only takes an hour a day for 8 days while you're doing the rest of your study. And I think that it's a big advantage. We've had students over the years who were photo readers for whom English was really a struggle for them. And it made a big difference in their approach and in their study. I would encourage you to do that. Any other thoughts about that? We got that covered?
I think you have it covered.
Okay, good. So there you go. We got it. Thank you. We also had a question about CLE credits for bar review. Answer is good luck. You can try. We do not provide anything to the various CLE providers. This is a long-running battle between bar reviews and CLE. In most cases, the CLE system does not view bar review as being worth that. And the amount of work that we would have to do to submit is, over the years we've deployed, doesn't work. You're welcome to try and get the credit. I'm not aware of anyone that has gotten them in a decade, at least, from us or from anybody else. It just generally isn't there. So sorry to say that we don't want available, which is dumb, isn't it? It should be a study credit. You're learning the law, but there you go. I guess they figure it's not enough for them. So that's CLE. Okay. If I give you enough time to reset your screens, Tracy?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. So you're going to talk about something called the CAIRN. How do you pronounce that and what the heck is it?
Karen, and we'll get to it here in just a couple minutes.
Okay. All right.
There's a magical place. If you are traveling to the Western United States or you live in the Western United States and you can get to Kanab, Utah, there is a geological formation there called the Wave, WAVE, the Wave. And it is one of the most fantastic things I've ever seen in my years here on Earth. It's off of US 89. You have to take US 89 through Page, Arizona, and you end up in Coyote Buttes. And you park in a little parking lot, sign into the register, and then off you go. This is a wilderness setting. This is not something where tour buses can drive up and you pile off for 10 minutes and take all your pictures and then pile back on the tour bus and drive away to the nearest crack and barrel. It doesn't work that way. You have to actually register to go there. And few people have gone there because it is a hard journey to get there on foot. A select few are permitted to find it. Only 64 people a day are allowed in to the Coyote Buttes area to look for the wave. It requires registration. You have to plan ahead. You have to apply in January to go if you want to go in May. That's how far ahead you have to put a reservation in. It sounds like bar exam, doesn't it? It's a tough journey. It is on foot. There's no tour bus. There's no easy little postcard that you get. You don't get to just pile up the bus and take your little 10-minute set of pictures and pile back on in air-conditioned comfort and drive to the crack and barrel. My husband, Chris, he was just a fantastic wildlife and landscape photographer. And he and I made plans a long time ago when we were in much better shape than I am now to go to the wave and to fill the stars at midnight with full moon lighting. Now, this was typical of Chris's plan. And at the time, I would just say, oh, you're the guy. I'll follow you. It's okay. I don't know what we're doing. It'll be fun. So like the bar, we applied. We paid some money. We paid quite a bit of money to get there. We had to prepare and we had to plan this journey. Then we actually had to journey. Now you can go to a big box supply store and get some boots or some shoes, maybe one size fits all. some shirts, some pants. You can have a fancy little vest. You can get your little click camera and set off if you want. No one's going to stop you. You get to the wave? Probably not. Could you die out in the desert? Very probably, and people have. It is a wilderness to go, and to go without a guide, not smart, not smart. Sound like another big box? Just saying. So the way to the wave is over slip rock, which is easy walking in one way and another way, very difficult walking. There are no trails. There's no nice sand to cushion your feet. It's hard on your feet. And if you get caught in a rainstorm, it's called slick rock for a reason. So you constantly have to be watching the weather. You have to be aware of your surroundings and what's going on. There's no trails, as I said. There's no directionals. You use things called cairns, which are, I'll explain them in a few minutes. Anyway, but that's your directions. I want to read to you for a second what the site says about the hike to the wave. The loop hike to the wave is entirely off trail. There are no cairns. Routes shown are approximate and do not replace common sense. There are a few markers on the hike to the wave. You should mentally note where they are to help you with the return to your car. Note that the new Google Maps engine does not show you the latitude or longitude of waypoints points of interest, elevation, or the distance between 2 points on the map. The engine does not show track or route elevation profiles. So good luck. Prepare for a day at the wave, and that's what it has to say. It's about 15 hours round trip. You have to pack in your own water, your own food, your own medical supplies should you fall. Very difficult to do. But there's tools that can be provided to you. There's guidance that you can have. And Big Box maybe doesn't come with that. But if you have a guide, like I had my husband who knew how to do this, then we knew to bring plenty of supplies, a map, and we stopped and talked to some Navajo Indian guides before we undertook this journey. We had to use our intuition. We had to follow our senses, just like we teach you on the MBE, to use your senses, to use your intuition. When you get there, you marvel that you're in a figure hall, like a bar exam room. We want you to think about what it took to get there, how few have had the privilege, how grand the experience. And then you open your book and you start to experience your own journey, your own journey's end. Let me show you what the wave looks like. It's absolutely phenomenal when you're there. It is huge. It is taller than 20 men standing on each other's shoulders. It is wide. There are other loops and other smaller waves, but this is the major wave there in Kanab, Utah. Once we got there, we set up our camera and we opened the lens and pointed to the sky and waited. We were going to wait all night for the full moon and just point the camera at the stars. We couldn't see it take the picture. To our conscious mind, nothing was happening with the camera. That's just like photo reading, isn't it? And once the lens clicked off after several hours of no movement, we gathered our things and we set back out to the parking lot. It looks a whole lot different going back to the parking lot than it did coming to the wave. You don't have the wave in the distance to show you the way to go. And with just moonlight and the memory of what the image looks like, recall, like your mind maps, where you saw the cairns, where you saw the markers. Do you know that when you're hiking in the dark, you should leave your flashlight off? If you turn it on, you'll not be able to see. Just like in the exam, you are ready, you have prepared, you let your senses, your memory, and your intuition guide you instead of a flashlight. Now, I was afraid. I was afraid of the shadows, afraid to lose our way. I was afraid that bobcats would come or snakes would bite me somehow. And I was afraid of the boogeyman, lots of things in the dark. But we kept moving forward. We used all our inner tools, relied on our training, the wisdom of our guides, and the unknown movement of the universe that led us on back out of that sacred, scary, beautiful, grand place. Let me show you something here. This is a cairn. This is a waypost in the wilderness. And finally, I saw one of these outlined against the moon, and we then hollered as we finished our test. A cairn is just a tower of rocks that people build and put up a little higher than where people are walking to help guide their way. Cairn. So a few weeks later, the photo lab called and told us our pictures had been developed. We practically ran to the lab, and this was our result. It's called a star trail, and it's my gift to you. You can go ahead and screenshot this if you want, print it out, put it up somewhere near your study area. And when you feel overwhelmed, when you feel like the boogeyman's coming for you, when you feel like the bobcat's going to jump out in the middle of the trail, or a snake is going to bite you, or you can't possibly remember the way to the wave or the way back home, you can look at the star trail and know that even though your conscious brain cannot see this happening, this is the movement of the stars in the sky over several hours of time, that it is happening, that your non-conscious mind is seeing it. And this is the representation of what you get. So this is my gift to you, and from Chris, who now lives somewhere in those stars, and says to you and to me every day, you can do this.
Wow. Folks, I've seen this photo in full size, and it is every bit as spectacular, actually more spectacular even than it shows on the screen. So thank you, Tracey, for sharing that. And now I know what a cairn is. And
we're the cairn.
yeah.
We're the cairn.
Let us be your guides. I think that's a great note for us to end on today. I hope that all of you will continue to move forward with your studies. Great opportunities here. We've got the 5 for 5 still open for another couple of days to get the coaching. We have the level up opportunity, and we've changed the times now, get them correct for Georgia and California. So we'll look forward to seeing those of you that are going to join us on Saturday. You will be getting an email from us with the link. And if you're doing the essay writing, I think you're getting an assignment, and the same for performance tests. So in any event, we will see all of you next Wednesday. Hopefully we'll be back on the community group with the events set up properly, but thanks for those of you that found us and migrated over here. And if you're watching and listening, we're glad to have you with us as well. And we'll be back next week. Any thoughts that you've got, Tracey?
You do this.
Yeah, there you go. All right, everybody, take care. We'll see you again next Wednesday. Bye-bye.